Well, hello, everybody. Glad that you're watching us today. We're excited to get back together with Team thisABILITY. Choice Insurance Agency is an official sponsor for this amazing adventure racing team, and we thought it would be great, kind of fun to get back together and hear about what's going on in their world. They've been gallivanting all over the place, and so we can't wait to hear what's happening. Before we get started, we thought it would be good to just do another introduction. For those of you that have been following, you know everybody here, and it's been fun to follow their progress, but it can't hurt for those who are new to find out who's all on our team meeting today. So I'll start. I'm Elizabeth Grimes. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Choice Insurance Agency. And then we also have on the Choice team, Kim Nelson. She's our marketing manager. She's also joining us. Want to say hi, Kim?
Hi, everybody. Great to see everyone.
Awesome. And then Chip Dodd, who is the team captain for Team thisABILITY. He's here as well with his team. Chip, do you want to take a second, introduce yourself and your team?
Sure. So yeah, team captain of Team thisABILITY. And for my day job, my company supports people with disabilities. So think autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, things like that. And we always focus on what they can do, not just what they can't do. So that's kind of the name of the team, and that's basically how it spawned as part of my company. And then as Andrea and I started racing more and more, we kind of took it to the most extreme level where we're now honestly an international team of athletes that compete in some of the world's toughest races. It's been a lot of fun. But the really fun story about with Choice and our partnership is that Rich Braun, the founder of Choice, is the person who introduced me to this sport. And so it's every time I talk to him, he's grinning ear to ear, like, what are you doing next? And so he loves seeing it going from my first minute in an adventure race to now where we're getting ready to get on an airplane next week to go to Africa.
Wow. I'm so glad you guys are connected.
I guess we can let the
yeah. Exactly. Well, what about the rest of your team?
So I'm Andrea Anderson. I've been racing since 2016 with Chip, and he's my significant other as well. So we spend a lot of time out in the woods, and we still like each other. So I'll pass it on to Caitlin.
Hey, yeah, I'm Caitlin Thorne. I've been racing for about 7 years now. I got on Team thisABILITY a few years ago when I moved up from Virginia, and been racing with them ever since, and looking forward to racing in Africa shortly. Rachel?
Yeah, so I'm Rachel Nolan. I'm the one with the funny accent that sings a few songs. So I suppose I'm the new addition to the team for this next event, and I feel really lucky to be part of this event in Africa with them. I started racing 6 or 7 years ago, adventure racing. And yeah, I'm really excited to share this with the team.
Very cool. Well, sounds like we've got a wide variety of locations and talent and adventures all wrapped up into one great team. I'm excited to get to know you all a little bit more. Well, why don't we just go ahead and dive in? I want to start with your most recent race. I know Kim's excited to also ask some questions about your African expedition race, but let's go with the C2C one that's coming up, or the one that you just finished. Can you tell us, maybe Chip, you want to go first and tell us a little bit about the C2C 72-hour adventure race?
Yeah, sure. This is one of the best first expedition races that we have in the United States. And when I say expedition, most of us define that as anything more than 48 hours of continuous racing. So this is kind of the race that teams go to and test out. They call it like a shakedown before you go and do a bigger race, either in the United States or internationally. So historically, you have 72 hours to go from the Gulf side of Florida all the way back to the ocean side of Florida. For the last few races, and this was our 4th time doing this race, the race director has a contract with a hotel in St. Augustine. So that's always the finish line, but you have no idea where the start is until you load the buses 6 a.m. the morning of the race starts. So you literally are just going down there, you pay the money and you get your team together. Rachel flies in from Ireland to do a race. We have no idea where we're even starting. So then basically there's somewhere between 72 and 82 checkpoints. So roughly about each hour, you're looking for this flag out in the woods or in the swamp or on the paddle section or in the bikes, all over the place. Normally, the race director really tries to show off some of the better areas of Florida, and this year did not disappoint. We went through a place called Santos, which is some of the best mountain biking trails in all of Florida. So, so it's just a lot of fun. Since we've done the race 4 times too, we really kind of knew what we were doing. We're familiar with the maps. The team really gelled, and it just, I think it was one of the best performances that our team's done.
Very interesting. So where did you end up actually starting then?
Let me look. I actually have it. Fort Island Beach Park is the race start station, which is basically just a little place where it's like a boat ramp where if you want to go fishing or put a canoe or a fishing boat in, you can put it in. But there's like nothing there. There's no major city. But all of a sudden there's like 60 teams that are all, came to this location and went in all directions. Total chaos.
That's so fascinating, though. I mean, can't beat starting out at the beach, right? But 72 hours. So you got to sleep sometime, right? So where do you sleep, and how much sleep do you actually get when you're on one of these races, especially this one?
Yep. We normally, almost always, the team goes through the first night with no sleep at all. And then the second night's usually, we call it the sleep monsters, when you start hallucinating. And it affects everybody. One minute it's Caitlin, the next it's Rachel, the next it's Andrea, the next it's me. And what was a little bit unique about this race, I think we were well into the second night on the paddle section, and all of us, like at the same time, the sleep monsters just came in and attacked us. And we were with some other teams too at the same time, and we were on the paddle section, which is common for a very difficult time to stay awake. And I think we had like maybe an hour before we got off the paddle section, and all of us were just like, this is dangerous, let's pull over. But I think Caitlin, what you let us sleep, like, I think you gave us like 10 minutes, right? Is that it?
Well, so typically you sleep on the second night, but this was a like 12-hour long paddle, and we had just got on the paddle that evening. So, we didn't really want to stop because we wanted to make it to the TA. But it was, on top of that, it's at night, it's kind of cold, we're kind of wet, so we didn't really want to stop. But we were literally almost to the TA. We probably had about another hour to get to the TA, but we were just dying. So we stopped. It wasn't for very long. It was just enough to basically get out of the canoe, lay down for 10 minutes, and then get right back up and keep going. But the 10 minutes was enough, I think, to kind of re-energize us and, get us to the transition area. Where we were very happy to be, and then we had an O relay, so some of us could stay back and sleep while half of the team went out on the relay. So it kind of worked out. But we did go for longer without sleep than we anticipated, just because we had that long paddle.
Wow. I mean, I can't imagine having lack of sleep and then actually trying to paddle a canoe. I mean, I would think it'd be
you're paddling and you're literally like falling asleep as you're paddling, but it's like you had no choice. We're like in the middle of this lake, like we couldn't just like pull over, if you're in the middle of the lake. So like you keep moving forward and you just try to stay awake as best as you can.
And it is Florida, so it's a lake with lots of very large gators. So this is not where you just get on the side of the beach or any point on land and just lay next to the water. So that was the other thing that crossed my mind, is like, we can't safely just sleep on the ground here. But luckily, when we found a place, it was like on this big berm, and it was pretty much like, why would a gator be up there? And I felt comfortable sleeping, and that got us to dawn. And then as soon as the sun comes up, we're back to normal. But I think I know when it comes down to like how much, I guess I think I ended up with about an hour and 10 minutes, maybe a little more. How about the rest of you? Because I know Caitlin mentioned the O relay. What that is an orienteering relay, which means half the team goes out on foot for a few hours and then comes back, and then the other half goes out on foot and comes back. So
Ah,
we were able to catch a little bit of sleep. How much did you guys get?
Well, I'll
Yeah.
jump in and say I got about probably 2.5 hours total, but you've probably gotten an idea of what role Caitlin plays on our team. When we were sleeping on that berm, there was some other teams around us, and one of the other teams said, "Can we have 4 more minutes?" And Caitlin said, "No, we're going." And so we all got up and we went, and 4 minutes was just too many. So
She cracks the whip.
yeah.
I was ready to get off the water.
How
I
much
guess I
did you
would've been
sleep,
too.
Rachel?
Yeah, I actually only slept really in that kayak part. I strangely enough didn't sleep when it was time to sleep. The atmosphere was too good, and I think I just kept going up getting more egg sandwiches, and got chatting to a few people. So, yeah, you just mentioned there about the alligator. So I had never seen an alligator or any of these crazy things before. So it was kind of freaking me out a little bit without me saying anything. Like we were plodding through these swamps at one point. I didn't really want to say it, but I had no idea what was under there. And I was just really kicking myself for wearing shorts because I've definitely learned my lesson. No more shorts. I don't want anything hugging me.
I would imagine there's
So
probably
yeah, that was kind of probably the kind of fun element for me there, is that, you know, I haven't, like in Ireland, the most dangerous thing are sheep and wild Irish women. So just, you know, you can stick your hand down a hole or, you know, climb a tree or do anything like, and there's nothing, you know, nothing's going to harm you. So, you know, it's just a different environment to be in. You can sleep out here on the ground if you don't mind the wet or whatever, but there's no issues. So that was my element of surprise all the time.
Well, I can't imagine not knowing what's in the water while you float half asleep trying to get to the other side. And then, like you said, trying to go to sleep, that would be impossible, imagining something crawling up next to you. Well, I mean, and that's sort of a little bit of a hardship. I'm curious, were there any hardships that you kind of had to overcome as part of being in the race?
No one wants to admit to any of them.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, you know, sitting on a bike seat for a long time eventually gets uncomfortable. Everything you do eventually gets uncomfortable because you do it longer than either you're used to or you ever have before in some cases. So eventually you're just really excited to get to the next activity. You know, once you're excited to get on the boat, but then 15 hours later, you're really excited to get back on your feet. And then after you've been on your feet for, I don't know, 8-10 hours, you're ready to get on the bike. And so it's a series of things you need to deal with. And there's a lot of mental, just managing all of those things.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of mental hardships as well, like you alluded to, like especially when you're trying to find a checkpoint. We were trying to get as many checkpoints as possible, and then when we get to a place and we're looking for the checkpoint, and then 30 minutes goes by, and then you think you're right there, and then you've invested 45 minutes into finding the checkpoint. It's hard to kind of let go and just move on. When you can't find it. So, and then if you don't find it, you have some of that just mental, you feel down, right? When you
Sure.
race, so you got to pick yourself back up and say, hey, we're still in this. We're still doing really well, even though we might have missed that checkpoint. Let's keep moving forward. So a lot of it's mental too, as Andrew was saying.
I bet, definitely, for sure. Again, there's so many parts along the way where if you really think you've got it and then you find out you don't. And so that's kind of a good lesson too, because you just got to kind of keep going even when it doesn't quite make sense, right? That can be applied to all things in life, really. Well, so go ahead. Chip, were you going to say?
I was going to, the other part, because obviously when you go through these things, there's like the physical hardships of I'm tired, I'm sleepy, my feet hurt, my butt hurts, I got a blister, whatever. But the mental aspect of this race in particular, everybody thinks it's just Florida. It's not that it's flat and all of that. But at the end of the day, the navigation is way more difficult because it is flat. You don't have mountains and lots of creeks and things to look at. You just have like the swamp and the bush. And so navigationally, this is an extremely difficult race. And then also in adventure racing is known that the maps aren't going to be perfect, right? every trail's not on the map, every road's not on the map. Sometimes there's roads that are on the map that don't exist in real life. And so you expect a little bit of the unknown and all of that. But this race in particular, the race director had some problems with the maps, and there were some errors made, and they've admitted to it, said sorry. They even gave some people some credit for some checkpoints that they didn't find.
Oh, wow.
But for me, I know Caitlin has helped me a lot with like logistics and stuff. But for me, this was one of the hardest races because the puzzles that we were having to solve were way more difficult than most races. So the fact we did as well as we did, given the hardship, the navigational hardship was, I was pulling out every trick in the book to try to make sure we stayed on track.
I can only imagine. Well,
And he did a really good job.
Thank you.
No doubt. I'm sure he did. Just based on some of the other races that we followed, and you guys have done pretty good overall as part of the adventure racing community, if you will. I did want to ask you though, you were talking about the race being difficult. So was there any one particular leg that you would call the crux or the most difficult in the entire race?
What do you think?
Yeah.
Rachel? Or go ahead, Andrea.
I think we'd all say the paddle leg was like the crux because it was overnight. It was 45 miles. It had some vegetation in the lake that made it hard to go around. So, we kind of tried to get through this maze of vegetation and finally had to end up going clear back around to where we thought we couldn't get through. And then we had to kind of forge our way through that, kind of stabbing at the vegetation to get the boat to go through. Meanwhile, you see these alligator eyes, little red eyes off, and they're there. So yeah, I think that was probably the crux.
Would everybody agree?
Yeah, I think so. I think probably the paddling, just the length of it, really. Although Caitlin did a good job with the singing the 12 Days of Christmas, was it? You could give us a blast there if we have a good time at the end. I was impressed that she knew all the words.
Yes.
So
all of it.
yeah, if we have time at the end, she can do a speed up version of it.
It's like the 99 bottles of beer song, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we're going to have to put a task for Africa that we all have to have at least 5 songs with all the real words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you need to record it and make a mixtape or something, right?
Yeah, stereo system there, all right. But
I might have just dated myself there, calling it a mixtape.
Right. So to chime in on what Andrew was talking about, it literally, I felt like we were an icebreaker going through this stuff. Like we had to switch positions, and I'm like up front stabbing and moving these large pieces of vegetation. Right after another guy said, "Be real careful," because I was trying to do this roughly in this same spot, and I disrupted a mother gator with 2 baby gators because he recognized the sound, and the gator snapped at his paddle.
Oh. So
now put that in your head at night and then go, okay, I'm going to jump in the front of this boat and start stabbing into this stuff to get through right where he just said the mama gator was. I mean, it was definitely a crux. And I don't know about you guys. I had that feeling of like, we're trapped. Like we have to continue on, but this vegetation's here. The gators are here. There's no way around it. You just have to suck it up and push through. And the team came together and did that. But that was one of the most frustrating, scary, for me at least, that was that paddle section. And she said 45 miles, what that really means is 14 or 15 hours, meaning you're going to see the sunrise and the sunset no matter when you take off on that paddle. You're going to do all night long. So it was tough.
I can only imagine. I'm just glad you guys all survived. Well, thank you so much for sharing about the C2C race. I know Kim has a lot of questions related to the African expedition race that's coming up. Kim, do you want to dive in and share some of your questions? And again, let's find out what's going on with that race.
Oh, absolutely, because I think this is going to be a good one coming up. So it sounds like C2C was a nice little warm up for the upcoming expedition in Africa. So tell us about that. Tell us what's ahead.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a long story. I'll try to shorten it, but like with Choice, I've been friends with your leadership team and Rich for a long time, and Choice puts really big goals on the count, like in the future, saying that we want to go there, and half of you probably like, this is crazy. There's no way we're going to make it, and then all of a sudden you cross that finish line, and you grew, take over that new line of business or expand your territory. And as a business owner, we do the same thing, but in adventure racing, you take it to this next level. So Andrea and I were watching Expedition Africa 2018, and the media at this race is unbelievable. Like there's constant updates on social media, like every team crossed the finish line, and we would hear their interviews and all of that. And we literally like, we've got to put this race on the calendar. And it was like the biggest, scariest goal I'd ever undertook in my life. Even to this day, this race was the one that was just, I mean, you're talking 300 pounds of equipment getting shipped to the other side of the planet. The race we did in Ecuador was right next to it on the scariest though. So like, that's why I picked this photo behind me, which is us crossing the finish line with our 2 South African teammates that we met 24 hours before the race. So you're gonna do the hardest thing you've ever done with people that you don't know. But crossing that finish line, literally, it's like one of those like best experiences of my life. So we're out there, and we immediately got back and was like, we've got to come back and do this race. Primarily, one is the race director's amazing, but 2, Lesotho is the country that it's going to be in, which most people are like, what the heck's a Lesotho? It's spelled Lesotho, which is the way we would pronounce it in English, but they pronounce it Lesotho. It's a country surrounded by South Africa. So think like in Italy, there's the Vatican, and it's surrounded by Italy. It's its own kind of independent entity. And there's only, I think there's 4 countries in the world that are surrounded by another country. 3 of them are in Italy, and one's Lesotho. So it's way from Africa. And it's the highest country in the world, average elevation. So think it's like Denver on steroids, very high. And it's very mountainous. There's not many trees. It's very wide open spaces, so it's supposed to be it's absolutely stunningly beautiful. The people are very, I don't know what's they live off the land. There's not a lot of big cities. This is people who build their own hut and grow their own food. They're completely independent and self-sufficient. So I think we're going to look like aliens landing in this country. They've never seen adventure racers before. It's going to be amazing. So that's kind of history of why we picked this race. This is their 10th anniversary of doing Expedition Africa. And I'm super excited. We're going into the race with a team that we all know each other, and we've now raced together. And so it's a lot less scary knowing that we can trust the relationships. Each of us have gone through our hardship of blisters and suffering, and we know how each other react. And so now I feel, I mean, this is literally the strongest team we've ever gone into a race with. I'm super excited about this.
That sounds awesome. So you're kind of going from one extreme to the other, going from flat Florida to not flat, and all totally different terrain in Africa. So what's the difference in the strategy? What do you have to do in planning that?
Yeah, I'm interested in what everybody has to say, but I'll just say, just me personally, sea to sea, we knew exactly what we're getting ourselves into. It's in the United States. There's 911 if you need it. There's cell service. You're surrounded by a city, so if anything happens, it's not as dangerous as you are when you're in a completely remote environment. There is no 911. They're not coming with the choppers. You figure it out until tomorrow when they send the car come get you. So in sea to sea, I was looking at it like we're going to push hard and fast, and take the chance on breaking stuff. In Lesotho, any of these big 5-day monster races, it's a race of attrition. Everything is about efficiency and not breaking down. Because if you break your bike in day 2, you don't have a bike the rest of the race because you're not sourcing a bike in Lesotho. So that's my thing is let's go in and push as hard as we can, as efficiently as possible, and just don't break stuff, people or equipment.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm just really happy to be in the hills as well. I think the Florida is probably the flattest place I had been, but it was surprisingly a lot more challenging than I thought, a bit like kind of what Chip had said. So it sounds, the terrain just sounds really wild and rugged, which it does sound a little bit like Ireland as well. But I think the fact that there's such a big gap between the transitions, so when you kind of see let's say your bike box or your food or whatever, I think that logistics will be kind of one of the key things. Not having enough food out there, or deciding you're not going to sleep and going through a night where you're now in very cold, wet conditions, and you might have had an opportunity a bit lower down where there was a shed or something. So I think I think this one compared to Florida will be a lot of kind of going with the opportunities and looking at logistics along the way as well. So I think that's kind of one of the big differences anyway.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And just to put it in perspective, we're going about 300 miles, little over 300 miles, which is the same as Florida. But it's going to be separated out with bigger chunks. So like the mountain biking leg is going to be 142 miles. So that long of a stretch in one discipline is really going to challenge every team. So it might mean that we go a little bit slower, or we're just a little bit more conservative, maybe on the front end of the race, because we're trying to keep ourselves healthy and not injured. And maybe we'll pick it up as the race goes on. But there's going to be 112 miles of trekking, and then 27 miles of kayaking. And then there's going to be a horse riding activity and a mule activity. So I think that's a short thing, but something I know Rachel's been preparing for, even though the rest of us might not be as prepared as we could be. So I think just the mindset, though, of bigger, longer, more preservation type things. What do you think, Caitlin?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a different race in Florida. I mean, Florida, we were go, go, go. We were pushing hard. We were, like you said, we were covering a lot of ground, but it was flat, and I don't think it was as physically taxing. I think this race is definitely going to be, although you said it's the same mileage, it's going to be more physically challenging with the elevation. I think the elements might come into play just with the colder weather. And with the longer transitions, it always helps if there's a transition 5 hours, away, or you're only having a short 6-hour leg. But when you start getting into a whole 24-hour leg without seeing a transition, you might approach that leg a little bit differently. So I think we just keep those things in mind. We'll do fine, but it will be a little different than what we did in Florida at C2C.
Yeah, definitely sounds like they're opposite ends of the spectrum as far as the strategy goes for it. And I know Rachel was speaking about enjoying egg sandwiches in the C2C. So got a two-part question, but how are you going to source food during the race in such a remote location? And then, along with that, I know when I think of Africa, I'm thinking of going, safari, seeing all these animals. So are there any animals that you're concerned about coming up in the race?
Yes, I can jump in a little bit. I'm gluten-free, so I can't just eat anything. So sourcing food for me is a terrifying aspect of this race. The race director has told us basically don't assume you're going to get anything in Lesotho. There's not stores and things. Like this is a very remote course, very exposed. You're going to go through little towns and they have like a little shack with kind of stuff, but they're not going to have labels saying this has gluten, this doesn't have gluten. So we've basically been told when we get to Johannesburg, the race director's picking us up in Johannesburg and driving us the 6 hours down to the race start at Afri-Ski, which is a ski resort in Africa. And they basically said, when you get on the bus from Johannesburg, have everything you need for the entire race. So what that means is like Florida C2C, I was able to go to Jersey Mike's Subs and get some subs and put them in Ziploc bags, and I can eat them for 2 or 3 days, or get pizza and put them in Ziploc bags. I don't think we're going to be able to get real food and it lasts for the 6 or 7 days or however till I need to eat it. So this is going to be really, really complicated. which means a lot of bars, like the energy bars that are prepackaged, a lot of dried meats that we can get that don't go bad. So it's stuff that can sit in a hot gear bin for days and days and days without spoiling.
The
How about you guys?
dehydrated, yeah, the dehydrated like camping meal packets, like Mountain House, those typically work really well when you just add hot water. So things like that. I mean, yes, we'll be relying heavily on what we bring. Yep, there you go. Chip has it. Yep, I've got a lot of those.
Oh, cool.
They're lightweight.
And tie.
They're lightweight. They're high calorie. And they're easy to produce. You know, just hot water. So yeah, most of the food that we'll be consuming, we'll bring ourselves, just so that we don't have to, as Chip said, try to rely on you know, a remote gas station, which we may never find.
Oh yeah, exactly. And then how about the wildlife?
So Africa to me is scary, right? Because we did go to the wildlife preserve after the race last time, and sure enough, a big, I can't remember what it was, a leopard or something comes out of the woods and's walking right next to the car, and this is a huge cat. Like, we're not talking like, you know, you see them on the television, it's one thing. When it's right there outside your car, it's amazing. I mean, giraffes when they walk by, and you know, we saw elephants, we saw everything. Not lions. So that was only they didn't, like, some of those where the lions are crawling on a car. That would be super scary. So as I was researching this, it sounds to me like the most thing we need to worry about in Lesotho are the snakes. There are lots of snakes, lots of different types of snakes. They're all poisonous, and you're not going to make it to a hospital. So that's the thing I think we need to primarily watch is when we're stepping over rocks or doing stuff, we're primarily looking out for the snakes, although they have something called a Cape buffalo that kills 200 people every year. So any big animal, we're going to be very like, you know, whoa, let's like let that thing pass. But, you know, of course, sleeping, you know, is one of these. I don't want to wake up with a snake next to me. But so that's primarily what I'm concerned about. How about you guys?
Yeah, well, on that note, I didn't really look up about the animals there. I wasn't really too concerned. But on that note, I think I'm not going to be sleeping at all.
Yeah,
I'll be jumping in with one of you. Yeah, and just St. Patrick's. It's St. Patrick's Day here tomorrow, so we're fortunate enough that he came and got rid of all the snakes. So I was going to bring one or two back from Florida, but I didn't. But I have no relationship with them, and I don't know anything about them. So I definitely, you know, I won't be. I'll definitely be avoiding that. Any issues with the snakes. So yeah, thanks for that, Chip.
Yeah, if you like that.
So it's a true adventure race in every sense of the term, all aspects of it. What's, you know, one of the things that I enjoy when we chat with you guys is just hearing about all the cool places that you get to go to. Are there any things in particular that you're really excited to see in Africa when you go?
So,
Go on.
Okay, well, I was just to say what I'm most excited about is just traveling through the country, seeing a brand new country that I probably otherwise would never go visit. And, you know, we're going to be basically on in the backwoods. You know, again, if you were to even go to that country, you probably wouldn't travel the same routes that we're going to travel. And I'm also interested in interacting with some of the locals along the way. I really enjoy seeing how, you know, people in other countries live. And this is a very, very authentic way to go and do some, you know, interaction along the way with some of the locals. So I'm pretty excited about that aspect of the race.
Well, I do think there is a large waterfall, and I really hope that we get to rappel next to that. I don't know if we will be doing that, but I expect to see some waterfalls. I expect to see some wide open vistas. I expect to get to a pretty high elevation and be able to look down at the whole rest of the world, or at least feel like you're at the top of the world. So I'm excited about those things.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things as well with the adventure race, and obviously you don't have your phone or anything with you. So whatever you do see, it's really amplified because you're just really connected with it. Whereas in the real world, you know, you're on holidays, or you're doing something, you're taking your phone out, taking a picture. This, you're just in it. And then when you're in there with your teammates and you're kind of sharing the experience, I think it's, you know, and at the end of it, it kind of blends into one, even though it's a big deal when you're there. You're kind of, we're going, where was that again? I don't remember what it was, but at the time you're really in it. And I think that's what's really special about it as well.
Yeah, there's a common saying in events racing, there's the first day, there's the last day, and the middle day, and all the middle days run together. You remember the start, you remember the finish, and the rest is mush. So I'm like Andrea. I think the falls, which I think it's pronounced Mallets Unine or something. It's a very hard word to pronunciate. For us in the States, it's 630 feet tall. That's a very long rappel. Or if you're outside the United States, it's 192 meters. Absolutely beautiful. If you type in, again, it's spelled Lesotho, but it's pronounced Lesotho. If you just type it into Google and hit images, you'll see the waterfall. It is their premier thing in that country. So I'm super looking forward to that. But a little bit like what the others were saying, the being completely immersed in these races when you have nothing on your mind other than moving your team across this, you know, through every challenge that they can throw at you. After about day 2, your emotions start being extremely volatile, especially day 3, day 4 as the race goes on. So the colors are more vibrant, the sounds are crisper, your taste is more vibrant. If you're having a bad day, like the blister hurts worse than it would if you were just running around Mount Trashmore in our backyard. So we all have to be ready for these very volatile emotions. This last time when we were there in 2019, literally 8 hours before the race ended, I'm like totally in tears. It was a beautiful day outside. All the colors were just amazing. And I was having the time of my life. I didn't want it to end. It was like, this is where I feel most alive. And I knew the minute you get to finish, although that's fun, now you got to check your cell phone and check in with your family and friends, and the real life comes crashing back in. So for me, that's really what I'm looking forward to, is that when I cross that 48th hour and I'm just embedded with this amazing team, it's going to be amazing.
That's awesome. I can't wait to hear when you all get back. We chat again, and you know, your team here at Choice, you know, we're rooting for you guys. So, and our clients and our followers on social always get excited when they can see your progress and all. So what's the best way to keep up with you in Africa?
So yeah, there's an Expedition Africa events page, and they will have dot watching. So what that is all of the teams are going to have a GPS tracker. We're not allowed, we can't see it to navigate. It's just to ping out our location. And it does have a button, like if we are in trouble, usually we can call for help, and they eventually will come find you. So that's the cool thing is, so for 5 days, as you're waking up and going to work and coming home and all of that, for 5 days, you know, you'll be able to wake up and see that we're still moving. Sometimes there's some commentary on their social media. And I can put all the links at the bottom of the video for this. So so they usually are checking in with the teams. And since there's only 2 United States teams this year, we'll probably get a lot of airtime with them because we're kind of a novelty, I guess. But also, of course, then they on our Facebook page, I think we're going to have some commentary from another teammate of ours, Brent, that you guys have met, I think. He's probably going to be doing some commentary just specific to our team. And then, of course, we're going to be carrying the GoPro. You can see it in this photo here. I'm wearing the GoPro. We'll be videoing our experiences and then eventually make it into video and put it out on social so you can get a little better idea what it was like. And even better, we go back and watch it to remember, because if you do something epic every day, you forget what you did epic 2 days ago because the new epic erases the old epic. So we go back and watch these videos just to remember this amazing experience. So, but I'll put all the links in the bottom of the video. So if people want to click on it and check on it, they can follow us.
Awesome. We'll make sure we're posting to our social and giving as many updates as we can. So we're so excited. Does anybody have any final thoughts you want to share before you embark on this adventure?
I think the only thing I want to share is that if you are interested in adventure racing, you don't have to take it to this level. You can start local, and you can start with like a 3-hour race and see if you like it. It's so much fun. So you should give it a try.
That's great advice. It really is. Well, I also want to thank you for your time. You guys were amazing. Loved meeting Rachel and Caitlin for the first time, and also just, again, hearing your experiences. It's inspiring. And again, your cause as a whole is commendable. It really is. It's just the fact that we're helping people realizing that they have abilities that they, and across the whole idea of adventure racing is just a really good, healthy way to interact with people in our world as a whole. So thank you for leading the charge on that.
Let me jump in real quick.
Yeah.
There's one thing that crossed my mind. I think it's worth bringing up because we just crossed the day of like celebrating women's achievements, and this is very odd in adventure racing to have a reverse co-ed team, right? I am now the mandatory equipment, right? It's like they got to have a guy or they're not co-ed. And so we'll probably be the only reverse co-ed team, I almost guarantee you, in this race. But the funny thing is, it's like I feel like I'm going in with the strongest team possible, because in adventure racing, it's one of these, women are some of the strongest racers in the sport. So it's like I'm ecstatic that we're going in with this team, because each of the people on this call are amazingly strong and can outdo most guys in this sport. And so I think it's just neat that we can celebrate that a little bit, and just the achievements and all of this. So it's just super fun.
Absolutely. You've got some rocking girl power on this team. So I'm excited about that.
Yay.
Totally.
Exactly. So he sounds like he's a pretty good team captain. Wouldn't you guys say?
I do what I'm told.
A little bit of the mutual admiration society here. But seriously,
Yeah, we'll keep them.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
We'll keep them.
Good.
We'll keep them.
Good idea. Well, again, thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate that you're going to share all the links as well. Be sure to include a link to your website too. And then just for all of our fans, everybody watching today, we want to let you know that Choice Insurance Agency, our mission is about making sure that you have the right insurance. We believe that having the wrong insurance is risky, and financial ruin should never follow a disaster. And as trusted advisors, we secure dreams. So that's what this is all about. It's about achieving and reaching your dreams as a whole. And so if you have any questions, you can follow along with the links that Chip is going to provide, as well as we'll be sharing this on all of our channels too. So we encourage you to be sure to follow along and check back later and keep track of them. And then when they're done with the race, we'll follow back up again. Thanks again one more time to everybody. We really appreciate your time.
Cool. And thank you to Choice for supporting the team. We couldn't be doing this type of crazy stuff without you guys. Thank you.
It's our pleasure.
All right. Well, goodbye, everybody.
All right. Thank you.